intricacies of a state trying to sue an organization like Meta or any other social media outlet for ruining the mental health of that state's children, because there are several of those lawsuits that are in the works. My guess is if there's any level of success, there'll be more coming. I don't know what the remedy would be, but we can discuss all that with our next guest, Texas attorney Lynn McCraw. Welcome back to the show, counselor. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. I'm guessing that state law is probably not. By the way, are you a Texas Rangers fan?
I certainly am.
All right. I'm going to let you on my show anyway.
Well, I'm an Astro fan as well. When they play each other, I've been in Texas my entire life, so I like to watch them both.
All right. Well played, sir. Well played. Now, do you see why he's an attorney? Are you a mediator? Do you do mediation?
No, I don't. I am a plaintiff's lawyer. I handle serious injury cases primarily out of
I think you might be missing your calling. I mean, you were very quick on your feet on that whole Astros Rangers thing. All right. I'm thinking that suing, regardless of who's doing the suing a social media organization for mental health issues with your state's youth, I guess the first thing they would have to do, and again, I'm not an attorney, you are, but I'm guessing the first thing you would have to do in a trial is to prove somehow that that's what's happening, that we are having mental health issues and that it's due to social media. I don't know. We can guess that that's probably part of what's going on, but proving that seems like a really difficult thing to do.
There are always going to be proof issues that are going to be significant. The way the states are handling these cases is very similar to the way that the states and cities and counties handled the tobacco litigation. And the theory is one of a public nuisance. And much like the tobacco cases, what I suspect they will do is develop evidence to the evidence that they have to develop if they're going to be successful is that not just they provided a platform, but they're going to have to show that they manipulated the platform to make it more addictive, that they manipulated the platform, and the manipulation of that platform is a cause of mental health issues these kids are having. They're going to have evidence of all of that, and if they don't, it's going to be very difficult for them to succeed in these lawsuits.
Yeah, to me, this gets into a very interesting area, and you brought up big tobacco. I think that's probably a good example. For those of us who smoked when we were very young, nobody forced us to smoke. I mean, other than perhaps a little bit of peer pressure. I think most of us knew, at least those of us who were born after the Surgeon General's report came out, knew that there were health problems connected with cigarettes, and we made our own decision to smoke, and if we became addicted, that kind of became our problem to try to solve. I don't know that ultimately, in my world, that big tobacco is to blame for that. I don't know how you feel about it, but I kind of feel the same way about Facebook or any other social media group. Parents allow their kids to go on and use this. These kids are under parental supervision, at least I would like to think they are. Shouldn't it be the parents' responsibility if they deem that something their child is using is bad for their health? It becomes a parental issue as far as taking that item away from them?
There's always an element of personal responsibility, but there's an element of personal responsibility also for businesses that operate in our country, okay? And the responsibility, and you hit on it when you said that you always felt that the cigarette companies were not responsible for you becoming addicted to tobacco. I understand that thought process, absolutely. But the evidence that was developed in the cigarette cases and the tobacco cases was that they manipulated the amount of nicotine and the amount of other chemicals to get people addicted quicker and to make it harder for them to get off. That was the basis of the public nuisance. But the basic of the basis was we are going to punish somebody for manipulating an unsafe product to make it more unsafe. Okay. And that's the type of evidence that they're going to have to develop, in my mind, in a public nuisance case if they're going to hold Meta or anybody else accountable for addicting children. They're going to have to show that perhaps these companies, tested the various platforms, tested changes to the platforms, see, if this is something that would cause children to use it more or less, and see, and also that they knew that it would cause them harm. That the other part that they knew that they would cause them harm is going to be a very tall order for the states to climb if they want to use public nuisance to try to shut down, this sort of activity.
Lynn, do you think that the states are maybe in a little bit better place because we're dealing with a product here that is not marketed to adults? Cigarettes were marketed to adults, or at least theoretically they were marketed to adults, not supposed to be sold to anybody under the age of 18 at the very least. So it became a problem with stores selling the product to people underage if that's what they did. By the same token, we have no age requirement, at least none by law at this point, regarding the use of social media. You could be, if you're capable of being on social media at the age of 3, you can be on social media, technically speaking. How does that work into this case, do you think?
Well, I think that when we have, age-related prohibitions, that it sometimes helps keep people off of a product or a service until they are mature enough to handle that product or service, or mature enough to know what decisions they need to make in their own life. I suspect that over time we will see probably some age-related issues, much like you would see with certain content on the internet that is that's supposed to be age-related. They're not supposed to let children see pornographic images and that sort of thing. I suspect that we very well could have some similar type of prohibitions, but the reality that most policymakers know that we're dealing with especially when it comes to technology and computers, is the children often know well more about the computers and about getting on and off of it and hiding it and all that sort of thing than their parents do. So it really, the parents don't necessarily have the tools to intervene and stop a lot of this. Okay, that's going to create a challenge for them for sure.
Okay, and here's the cynical part of me creeping into all this as well. I think that one of the reasons why tobacco became such a big target, and maybe one of the reasons why social media is becoming a big target, is they are perceived as having relatively deep pockets. Is this more about improving people's lives, do you think, for these states, or is it about scoring a big payday?
I think that is going to be a case-by-case issue. Some states are going to have legitimate fears of things that have occurred to their kids, and others, cities and counties sometimes just jump on the bandwagon for a big payday. That's the way they perceive it, and ultimately, the idea behind a lawsuit like this, the ultimate idea is that you change people's behavior by making it too expensive for them to ignore the problem. And if you change somebody's behavior, and as a result of that, and we can use smoking as another example, smoking is not nearly as popular as it was whenever all of these lawsuits were coming out, these public nuisance lawsuits were coming out, and the money that was recovered from that, a percentage of it was spent to help drive down the children smoking for sure, and drive down smoking in general, and that's had its desired effect. Now, I mean, it's also we've ended up now changing. Big tobacco is now changed to more of a vaping type of a scenario. So it's morphed, and now there are other issues, but those are, like I said, issues for another day.
Yeah, so. Right. Well, like they found a way around it, right? I can't get you to use my cigarettes anymore. I'll get you to vape. So they found a different way to introduce the product. I can't help but wonder, too, and I don't mean to open a big old can of worms on you, but I'm sure you're aware of this horrible mass shooting that just occurred in Lewiston, Maine. I think Lewiston, Maine, or the state of Maine last year had something like 29 total murders in the entire state for the entire year, and they almost achieved that number in one night. We've got a guy with a military background who has mental health issues, was institutionalized at least for a few weeks this past summer, who supposedly has said that he hears voices, has threatened other individuals, somehow has his hands on a gun, and he commits a mass shooting. And we're always trying to figure out, because we see this scenario over and over and over again, as far as trying to separate those who are mentally ill from their ability to carry a firearm. And we don't seem to be making any progress along those lines. Now, for some people, especially people on the left, their solution is to ban all guns or ban the sale of guns. And for people on the right side of the spectrum of this, of course, we want to maintain our gun rights, especially here in Texas. Is there an answer to this? Do we need to take a look at the laws regarding mental health in all cases? I know we don't want to involuntarily commit somebody for the rest of their lives without ample proof that that's what needs to happen in order to keep the public safe. But it seems like we're missing out on opportunities left and right here in order to get these people the help they really need and to separate them from the ability to commit a mass murder.
Well, understand, whenever you're talking about mental health, it always comes down to money. Where are we going to spend our money? We have a limited amount of money that needs to be spent to take care of people. And it gets split in all types of different buckets. One of the buckets that has been reduced significantly, even starting as early as the 1980s, was mental health. Many, and I can tell you from early in my career, I did some criminal defense, and many of the people that we would see time in and time out were simply mentally ill. They would commit crimes, and they didn't have, they were typically homeless, and it was a real problem for the criminal justice system because they couldn't just keep them incarcerated. It cost a lot of money to keep them incarcerated. And we didn't have a lot of real good options for people that were mentally ill otherwise that didn't need full-blown incarceration, but certainly needed to be kept an eye on to make sure that they had their meds, to make sure they were taking their meds, and that sort of thing. The problem with mental health issues is when somebody goes off the deep end, they stop taking their meds, and now all of a sudden they become a danger. They've dropped out, and they very often have very few people in their lives that could even ring the alarm bell. So you don't know a lot of times until they go off and do something like this. There are actions that we can do if we had people on the right and people on the left that would come together and say, we do need to keep these guns out of the hands of mentally ill people. We probably need to be doing something more about significant background checks when they're purchasing it. We might want to think about maybe putting some kind of a compromise together about so that we can limit the amount of harm that is done when one of these individuals does do this. It could be a capacity issue, could be the type of gun and that sort of thing. There are deals to be had that could still give us the opportunity to be safe, to have guns for our own personal safety, to do like I like to do. I like to go hunting, to have have hunting rifles and that sort of thing, and even to have rifles that may have capacities that we didn't have in the 1990s. The ARs and that sort of thing. They're a lot of fun to use. I'll be the first one to. It's a lot of fun to use them. It's the amount of damage they can do is significant, though. And as a society, if we're going to live together, we've got to work together to solve these issues and not just demonize the other side.
Right.
That's what we're missing is politicians are punished when they deal with the other side, even on something that most people look at and say, well, that's pretty common sense. They get called a rhino in the Republican Party. They get demonized, from the left in the Democratic Party when they decide to come together and say we're going to fix this problem. And the deeper problem to me has always been one of the way that we elect our people, the way that we do the seats. The gerrymandering has made it such that people that are in the middle get they simply can't get elected. because it's more a matter of the politicians have chosen their voters rather than the voters choosing the politicians.
The only thing I would slightly disagree with you on is that I still see this as primarily a mental health issue, and the reason why I say that versus a gun issue is you're right. We could certainly do things to reduce capacity on weapons and what have you. But the thing I've found about people who are criminally insane is that when they decide to do something crazy like that, they find a way to do it. And if that means they're going to get behind the wheel of their 1999 Chevy Traverse and drive 80 miles per hour into a crowd of people because they feel like killing folks, then they'll do that. They'll find some other way in order to be able to make it happen. So to me, the mental health thing is the component we really got to figure out. And unfortunately, to me, that's the most difficult one to try to figure out without trampling all over everybody's rights.
And I do agree with you that mental health is the primary component. And I do also agree with you that if there's a will, that there is going to be a way. That's why it's important that we take action to limit the amount of harm that they can do when they do pop.
All right,
because there's some of it's simply going to pop.
All right, Counselor, good to talk to you as always. Thanks for your insight. I sure do appreciate it.
All right, I enjoyed it. Thank you.